Morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? This morning, I should say. Let me just grab my other phone so I can see what the messages are. Okie dokes. Good evening, Mike. Good evening, Dr. Davey. Good evening, Kev. And good evening, Tim. I hope you're all well. Well, I could have gone traditional and gone upstairs and done London calling in the office, but I couldn't wait to get back in the saddle. Got to be honest with you all. Let me light my pipe. I've got a few problems in the garage, in the workshop. I've got to be honest. My bandsaw is giving me a lot of trouble. There's something wrong with it. My extraction has something's gone wrong with it, and the bag keeps falling off. A few things which I know sometimes when you just don't use stuff for a bit, use it again, it kind of is a shock to the system, and that's a bit of a worry for me. I must be honest, but they both should still be under guarantee. Um, Basically, with the extractor fan, um, the plastic sack, which is a heavy duty sack which gathers all the dust, is connected to the extractor with a very thick metal band which you tighten up around it. It's like a Jubilee clip. And basically, essentially, it goes around a rubber grip, and that grip has deformed, so it just comes straight off every time I reattach it. So it's a bit of a nuisance. I've got my 131 pipe, so obviously in it I've got 131. I actually set up some of that Christmas cheer 2005, which I cracked recently. Alethea Binfor, any of you who know from the Pipe Club of London, you may know her. She recommended that I give it some airtime because I wasn't totally impressed by that 2005, which it was a real anticlimax for me. So she said to give it some airtime, which I think actually makes a lot of sense. So first of all, I've got to jar it up, and everything's got a layer of dust now because I've got no proper extraction. Got to get that sorted. So I actually rubbed out a bowl's worth of the 2005 Christmas cheer. I left it upstairs, thinking that I'd be smoking it, but I'm in here now, so I've still got the 131, and I've got a selection of tobaccos which I keep out here. I've got Orley Golden Sliced, I've got some dark twist, and some other bits and bobs. So there's no shortage. But although some of you are quite happy to watch me shaping on the wheel, I just didn't feel like it was fair to do that, so I wanted to get it done quickly. Um, it's going to be a rusticated pipe, so the rest of it I can do sort of while we're talking. Oh, so I should show you the pipe, shouldn't I? So this is going to be a stubby stacked billiard. And it's going to be rusticated. There's Sea-Rock rustication. I should really find a name for my Sea-Rock rustication. Obviously, everybody wants to have their own kind of name for stuff, so I've got to think of something. I know some people use rustic, some people use various different names, so I've got to come up with something. So that's the rough shape of the pipe. So I'm still going to do some hand shaping, even though it's rusticated. I still want the shape to be pretty much tight before I start rusticating. But it's pretty good. It's got a slightly domed top, so that'll be smooth. With a green sort of jade or emerald swirly stem. And that's that. That's what this is going to be. The drilling on it is spot on. I might just re-drill the last bit by hand to make sure that the path is smooth without any restrictions. I tend to do that these days When the pipe is finished, I'll use my cordless drill and just drill it with a drill bit and just tidy up the hole and make sure that it meets the bottom of the chamber as it should, creating no, you could have this tiny little trough created by having a slight border between the drill hole and the bowl, and that can create some turmoil in the air path and give you gurgle. So I tend to, essentially, because of the shape of drill bit that I use, which is a U shape, so always the tip of the drill bit goes that little bit deeper in order to reach the draft hole. So I drill it a little bit short because I don't want to create that trough from that tip of the drill bit. So I drill it a little bit short and then just re-drill the draft hole so that it's nice and smooth. Hey Ken, how you doing? Andrew, hi. Hi Josh. Good evening, Daniel. How are you? What's my thoughts on an Oompal? Ooh. Yeah, funnily enough, I was actually looking at Oompal shapes earlier today. Hi Paul. I've started reading the Ephemeris book. I've got book number 1 of the Ephemeris, and I've actually had somebody offer me book number 2. So hopefully we'll get the set. It took me a bit of a while to get into it, to understand how the Ephemeris kind of works, the style of it, because it's very, very basic. The book that was published of all of the issues is taken from I think the draft form, because when he originally did it, that was made by Tom Dunn, and he did that completely voluntarily. He didn't take any pay or anything like that, and he just got support from people who were like-minded, but he didn't charge for it, and so it was done for a long time. He did it just purely with a typewriter. I'll do a video on it at some point. Yeah, because Tom, actually, who's the late Tom Dunn, he's no longer alive. When he put together the books, he writes a little intro in the beginning of the book explaining what it is. So I should really do that at some point. Daniel, I'm not sure what effect you're talking about. I think the Oompal is purely a shape. Some people call it a Hungarian shape, I think. It's essentially almost a U shape in terms of. So if you've got the bowl here, then so it's almost going straight up, the Oompal, so that the shank would be up here. It's basically a full bent pipe. Will it smoke the same as a bent pipe? Yeah, it is a bent pipe. Drilling it is more of a challenge for sure. I think it's just that little bit more straight than some bent pipes. I suppose every bent pipe is bent to a different degree. Some people's idea of a full bent is different to what other people call a full bent. Hi, James. It has an Irish feel because of the green stem, yeah. So far, it's looking good. It should be a nice chunky pipe when it's done. My understanding, I'm no expert, Mike can chip in if he wants, but my understanding of a calabash is that you have separate chambers, and usually what you'll have, the original calabash, which is a gourd calabash, which was made out of gourd, which was a vegetable, but essentially you have the main structure of the pipe, say made out of gold or made out of meerschaum or made out of briar, and then you have an insert, and then in that insert you'll have which is where you put your tobacco, and the hole will be at the bottom of the insert as opposed to coming outside, and that basically then goes through the gourd and down to the stem. But essentially, as I understand it, a calabash pipe is, you can have a calabash, what some people now call a calabash shape. So it's a really very bent kind of idea, but not necessarily a calabash pipe. But as I understand it, as I say, I'm no expert, but as I understand it, a calabash pipe essentially creates a chamber beyond the tobacco chamber. So the smoke goes into a secondary chamber, has a chance to cool down a little bit, and then it goes into the stem. So you have things which are called reverse calabash, which is where instead of the calabash chamber beneath the briar chamber, it's actually on the side in the shank. I was watching Three Rivers Piper earlier today. Very cool video of a conversion of a Volkswagen, you know, the Volkswagen vans. He's got some really cool videos on his channel. He's also got the video of Northern Briars on his channel. How could you invent a new pipe shape? Well, come up with something. I think it would be really hard nowadays to come up with something which is a completely fresh concept. Well, whether it needs a filter or not is arguable, because you can get reverse calabash or calabash pipes with a filter. I have one. It's got to the point for me that I just prefer smoking with a filter, even if a particular tobacco doesn't give me tongue bite. I just prefer the way the tobacco tastes now. I've got so used to using a filter that I just prefer it with a filter. I think pretty much, Paul, all shapes derive from one shape or another. So although you can have a shape of pipe which is your signature shape, it's usually going to be derived from something else. So to give you an example, Bullfrog pipes, he's made the what he calls the gum nut shape his. You know, it's become a shape which he is synonymous with. But you could say that that's basically an apple shape with a little twist at the top, you know, with a floral kind of flare at the top. But essentially, it's an apple shape. Or you could say it's a Devil Ants, because he does it forward canted. So you could say possibly that it's like a Devil Ants style pipe. You know, most pipes, to come up with something completely new, I think would be really hard. Some people say that, Daniel. Some people say that, for instance, church wardens, because it has such a long stem, some people say that it gives the smoke a chance to cool down. I've tried that myself, I must be honest. I have tried that with church wardens and so on, but I'm not so sure that it's about the smoke cooling down. It's more about the heat of the tobacco, and how fast you're smoking, how much smoke you're taking into your mouth, how frequently. I don't know if it's about temperature so much, although Art, from Artie's Place, he's done quite a lot of extensive experimentation and heat measurements and things like that, and he has measured the smoke as well. He's obviously got the equipment to do that. So I may be wrong there, and it may well be to do with the temperature of the smoke as it hits your mouth or your tongue. Yeah, as Tim says, you can get several smokes. Sometimes, I'm not sure if I've read it on a Savinelli leaflet in the past, but they talk about 4 or 5 smokes. Um, I must be honest, I never do. Very, very rarely. Generally, I change mine every single smoke. Sometimes you open up a pipe after you've had one smoke and the thing is black. You wouldn't want to smoke it again. Hey, John, how you doing? Although the reason that I use a filter is not so much because of the so-called health benefits, it's more about the tongue bite for me. Could you clean out a pipe that's dirty? For sure, of course you can. The whole second-hand pipe market, the estate market, is based around that. If you couldn't clean out a pipe, you'd be in trouble, and you'd have to clean out a pipe anyway for yourself, because if you don't clean your pipe out, you're going to end up having bad tasting smokes. Well, if tongue bite isn't a non-issue for you, then unless you want it for the health benefits, I wouldn't bother with filters. I mean, you could smoke a filtered pipe, just don't put a filter in it. And you basically have the chamber, which takes the filter, acting as a mini reverse calabash chamber, if you like. Whether it will actually give you any benefits or not, I do not know. I'm dubious. Yeah, good idea, Josh. I'm sure Josh has tried it. Again, Daniel, I'm not an expert. I'm still experimenting. As I say, I've got one pipe which I've drilled at 5 mil, and the rest of mine are drilled at 4.5 mil. I haven't, in the amount of times I've smoked it, I've not really seen a significant difference, if I'm honest. Morning, XJ. never really considered doing a coloured pipe, I must be honest. When is St. Paddy's Day? March. Just give me a second. You might want to turn the volume down again. Just need a second on the wheel because I'm not getting anywhere with the sanding on one spot. A shamrock indeed. Again, not an expert, but as I understand it, the system pipes, they are drilled so that there is an escape route for the liquid. So essentially, you have the mortise drilled over here, and you've got the drill going all the way through to the bowl, and then there's another bit going down, which is like a little cesspit. It's like a little chamber. So when you draw, if you're getting any fluid or even any tobacco possibly, or anything like that building up, and instead of it drawing into the stem, it comes this way and then drops down into that cesspit. That's how I understand it. It's like an overflow, and they end up getting really gungy and full of tar and that kind of thing. But that's my understanding of it. No, they wouldn't market it as a cesspit. No. My website is up, but it's not up to date. It's still got a bunch of samples on there. I've been away for the last week, so that hasn't been updated. And my son, who's working on it, he's away for 2 weeks. He's coming back this week. So hopefully soon we'll get some more work done on it. I mean, I could have just not shared it, but I just thought it'd be nice for people to see it as it evolves. Do you still need a filter with a system pipe? If you smoke filtered pipes, then yes, that has no effect on whether you need a filter or not. I'll give you one guess, John. Yeah, I guess so, XJ. The Cavalier pipe is a good example. You've got the screw thing at the bottom. in some ways even a Falcon pipe, although it's engineered differently. But you've got that little pot at the bottom where you've got the little ringed filters that you get. It acts in the same kind of way. That's it, John. lcsbras.com. Well, the filter is carbon filtered. It's usually active carbon, so it filters out substances. So it really filters out fine particles. So it will reduce the smoke. It will take out from the smoke anything that carbon can filter. So you've got to look it up online what it will filter out, but it will filter out possibly some of the nicotine, some of the tar. That's the general idea as far as I understand it. That's very good, John. I've got a bunch of pipes which are available. I need to do another update video at some point. Yeah, I'm a little bit behind on that front. That's all right, Daniel. Go ahead, no problem. Hi, Todd. How you doing? I do still do adornments, but when I'm doing these thick shanked ones, I tend to sometimes I'll do a silver ring, but the way I do the adornments, I can add them afterwards. So if I feel it needs it, I can add the ring. So I'm going to make a start on rusticating the pipe. Overall, the shape is pretty much as I want it. The lighting is throwing off the way it looks a little bit. It's got a domed, slightly domed top, which will be smooth. and there'll be a little smooth section there for stamping. Yeah, Daniel, those are all possibilities. I do that sometimes, not bamboo. I haven't worked with bamboo yet, but I have added mortar in the past to shanks. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I I tend to go with my own personal feeling about things, and it's kind of, I think of course, you want to make pipes look more beautiful all the time, but I'm also trying to carve out a style, a type of pipe that I make, so that people will come to expect a certain kind of design. Whilst I don't want to at the same time be hemmed in and feel forced to do a particular type of pipe, but the style that I like and the style that I go for, in terms of the pipes that I make myself, although I tend to go for pipes myself when I buy pipes, I tend to go with pipes with some silver on it. But what I'm trying to do is to make English style pipes with just a little bit of flair. So I want them to be solid smokers, number one, and they should have really nice lines, good dimensions, well look well balanced, and look well made. Not necessarily with fancy stuff on them. I want them to look like solid pipes, well made pipes, professionally made pipes, and they need to smoke well. Um, Based on classic shapes, but with a little bit of my own touch to that. And that's essentially what I'm going for. So sometimes they'll have adornments, sometimes not. It's also very time consuming to do adornments, which I don't have a lot of. I don't know at this stage, Daniel, what my signature shape is. For a while it was those LCS Rhodies, the stubby Rhodesians. That could be the egg shape I've been doing a lot of. So I don't really know at this stage. I'm just going with the flow. I'm not trying to force a particular thing. I'm not trying to sort of crowbar a shape into my sort of to be a signature style. I'm just, I'm going with the flow and just see where it takes me. Hey, Rich, how you doing? All right, so there's my rustication tool. We're going to get to rusticating. The scalloped curry, I assume you mean cutty. Yeah, it smoked great. Yeah, the cutty I knew would. Like I told you, Josh, those pipes, a couple of them, you wanted them virgin. Some of them would have been better with stains on. The cutty, for instance, worked out really, really well. The shape, I love the shape. The scalloping worked out very well, but there's a couple of sandpits on there which bothered me a lot. But I gave you the option at the time. But either I would have stained it or rusticated it. But the truth of the matter is, with time, with smoking, the color will get richer. It'll darken anyway. Um, so probably it'll get absorbed with time. All right, here we go. Rusticated it is. Hey Tony, how you doing? Thank you. I'm glad to be home, if I'm honest. Holidays are great, vacations are great, and it's easy to stay on them for a long time. But you got to get back to reality, and I missed my lathe, if I'm really honest. I often find with some pipes when I'm rusticating, or even when I'm turning them with a tool, some are much, much softer than others. And you kind of get a feel for some pipes that they're going to be really good smokers. Indeed, ASMR. I remember one time somebody complained on my channel. I was doing, I think it was a cigar video. It's going back a way now. But I was doing a cigar video and I was smacking my lips. So you know how you're doing to taste what you've got in your mouth? And he was very offended. He thought it was extremely bad etiquette to make those sounds with my lips when I was trying to sort of get those flavors through. My simple answer was to him, if you don't like it, don't watch it. So even when you're doing rusticating, I have mentioned this before, you might think that you don't need to be too perfect with the shape because you're rusticating it anyway. But you actually do have to keep an eye on the shape, because I've sometimes seen rusticated pipes and I've made them myself that they actually don't look nice, or as nice as they could, let's put it that way, because you haven't kept an eye on the rustication or on the shape originally. So it's important to get the shape right to start with, even though you're not sanding it to a high gloss, but the shape still has to be there. How many times have I stabbed myself with that? Thankfully, never, and hopefully it will stay that way. I made this handle out of briar, and it fits very, very well into the palm, so it's secure. So I don't want to tempt fate with that. So when I'm doing the rusticating, I stay away from the ridge, from the rim, and I do that right at the end. And I don't mind going into the rim with the rusticating, that's fine, because it gives it a nice kind of rustic, craggy edge. But as long as, you have to be careful, because when you're twisting, you can actually take a lump out of the rim. So that's a problem. If you end up taking out a big lump where it doesn't look like a rim anymore because you've got a huge cavity there, that's a problem. So you just have to be careful and do it slowly when you're doing near the rim. And yeah, and cutting into the rim is absolutely fine. You just, as long as it's little sort of jagged, sort of a little sort of craggy kind of look, as long as it doesn't go in too far into the rim, it's fine. I do collect this dust sometimes, these chippings from when I'm doing rusticating, because they're very good for when you do need to fill a hole sometimes, or when you're repairing a pipe. Some of the pipes that I've had issues with, which I've repaired afterwards myself, which I smoke myself, that stuff comes in a lot of use. Together mixed with a bit of super glue, it's fantastic. That is a very, very good point, Rich. An excellent point indeed, but the reality is the reverse. I've had plenty Trinidad cigars, Cuban ones, yes. Hey, aromatics. Rich, but to answer your question, the bottom line is that smooth pipes are more expensive, because, I mean, it should be, because the reason of that, smoother pipes are generally supposed to not have any fills, and therefore it's rarer, because briar is a natural product. The vast majority of blocks that you're going to get, unless you're paying an absolute fortune, but the vast majority of them will have pits. So therefore, most people, because they can't call it a grade A smooth pipe because it's got pits, so they rusticate it. So it's always been seen as a second grade option if your pipe wasn't up to mustard, good enough to be a smooth pipe. So if you've got a little sand pit, whatever, you rusticate through it, and it's just part of the rustication, and that's absolutely fine. Sand pits are not going to affect the smoke, so it's not an issue. Some people, it doesn't bother them in the slightest. Take Josh as an example. He's bought several pipes from me. He's got a 7-day set now, and some of them have got some sand pits, but it doesn't affect the smoke in any way, shape, or form, and it doesn't bother him. That's the main thing. If it bothers the person from an aesthetic point of view, or if that person is a bit OCD and they just can't cope with it, then you need to either get a rusticated pipe or a smooth pipe and pay top dollar for it to be sandpit free. So it was always a second option. So if your pipe, either the grain was very mundane, or if there was flaws in the pipe, it went and became rusticated. So this one's got a few little bits and bobs here and there, but nothing crucial. I set out to make this one. It wouldn't have made a difference. Well, if the grain would have been superb, I would have kept it smooth, of course. But from the off, it was, it's an Ebershorn block, so it's less likely to give me great grain. Although I've had some stunning grain from Ebershorn blocks with, you get varied grain all over the block, and that can be really, really nice. But this one, I knew pretty early on was going to be rusticated. But yes, you're right, it is labor intensive. However, doing a smooth pipe is also labor intensive. There's a lot of sanding to be done. So here there's very little sanding to be done. You've got to do some sanding to finish off your shape, but it's rough sanding. It's 180 grit sandpaper, which cuts quite roughly into the briar, which makes no odds because you're rusticating it anyway. Yeah, so that answers your question, Daniel, your second question. In terms of your first question, canted bowls, I don't like them. I rarely make them. I made one for Josh, but I generally don't make them myself. The only time when sometimes it might happen is if when you're drilling the pipe, for whatever reason, you've ended up not getting it absolutely square, so it's simpler to just cant it. But otherwise, generally speaking, I don't like a canted pipe because I think it's impractical. It's not practical at all when you're lighting your pipe. In fact, one of my own pipes, my egg-shaped pipes, I bent the stem much more because I wanted it to be a chin hanger, more than it would, in other words, so that it became canted. So when the stem is horizontal, the bowl is like that. And obviously that's going to create a lot of sort of charring over there because your bowl always ought to be upright. So I'm actually thinking of bending it back now because I can't see what I'm doing when I'm lighting it, especially in the car. A canted pipe, it's aesthetically pleasing to some people if they like it, but I just don't get the practicality of it. It's so not practical. You can't see what you're doing. But I get that it's pleasing to some people from an aesthetic point of view, and people like to, um, you know, get that what's his name, Devil Ants that Kevin Costner smoked in his movie, that kind of thing. So things become important to people for various reasons, but on a practical level, for me, it's no good. Oh, sorry, Daniel, you asked me. Sorry, I misread your question. You asked me what's the difference, or why would I rusticate or sandblast? I thought you meant rusticate or smooth. Sorry. Um, well, the rustication is what I said earlier on, where especially with an Ebershorn block, when you have a pipe which has got when you're using a plateau block and you've got your grain going up in that direction, oftentimes you will also see horizontal lines for sandblasting, and you can actually see it in the pipe. As soon as you get into a relatively smooth point, you wet it, and you can see those lines already in there. And if it looks like it's going to give you a nice ring grain, it's going to give you a good even sandblast ring grain all the way around, and there's an equal pattern. A lot of sandblasted pipes, they'll be great on one side, but they'll be useless on the other side. Such a pipe, I don't know if it's worth the effort, but where you've got a pipe which has got a good ring grain all the way around, for sure, I would sandblast it, absolutely. I'm sure in the fullness of time that I will end up getting a sandblasting unit. I've done quite a lot of research on it. I need to do more research on it. But at the moment, it's fine. If I get an exceptional pipe worth sandblasting, I just get somebody else to do it. No, I've done plenty pipes with the plateau on the bottom. It's called a reverse plateau. You just turn the block over. There's no rule. You do what you want. Good for you, aromatics. I'm doing a little workout here as well. Thinking maybe to make a little smooth kind of with the Dremel, possibly to dig into that and make some kind of a bit like not drip wax but something. Just trying to think about maybe doing something like that, because I've left a bit of a rim there. I'm not sure. It's everything. It's your shoulder, it's your chest muscles, it's everything when you're doing this stuff. That's why I'm happy to sit and talk to you, because I can stop every few seconds, because it's quite hard work. It requires elbow grease in order to get into that briar. You see a lot of sort of very shallow rustication, which is nice as well, like a leather effect. People do it especially that way. But to get a good type of sea rock rustication, it requires elbow grease. Yeah, I agree with the aromatics. In the beginning I used to hate sanding, but I learned to love it. Well, love it might be a strong word, but certainly tolerate it a lot better than I used to. I don't avoid it as much as I used to. I used to try and do as much as I could on the wheel, and I ended up getting sandpaper up to 400 grit because I wanted to do it all on the wheel. But you don't have the same finish if you do it all on the wheel. So I tend to go up to like I'll usually go, I start at 40 grit, and then I'll usually go up to about 120, and then 120, 220, 320, 400, and then I'll go back by hand to 320, and then 400, buff it, and then 600. To determine whether the platter goes on top or bottom, it's a personal thing. You just decide how you're making a pipe, if that's what you want your pipe to look like. And sometimes the plateau, the shape of it, will just look great, and you'll want to do it on the bottom. This is a horn pipe I made quite a while ago, and that one's got a plateau on the bottom. You can have plateau on the side. You guys will remember this pipe, which I made a good while back. Got amazing grain, and there you've got the plateau running up the side. And that's was a pipe I had to repair, and I put a ball coating in it to finish off the repair. Still haven't smoked it. Still got this pipe sitting in my drawer. I don't know what I'm intending to do with it. I mean, it's a perfectly good pipe. It's got an army mount, and it's actually not a non-filtered pipe. And there's absolutely no reason why I shouldn't be showing this off, but it really ought to be sold to somebody. But for some reason, it's sitting in my drawer. plateau is something which you're quite right, aromatics. It can be a beautiful thing. There was a time when I was doing plateau on a lot of my pipes, but now I'm up and down. I'm kind of evenly split on that. At this juncture, when you're doing rusticating, you have to be careful as well, because the shape of the pipe rests, a lot of it rests on this sort of this spot here. You know, your eye catches that area there quite a bit. So when you rusticate, you've got to be careful not to gouge out too much, because you could actually change that line a little bit. So you have to be careful with that. It's just something to bear in mind. Probably Mike is your best bet to answer that one, Daniel. But yes, I mean, all the high-grade artisan pipe makers, they will fan out the slot, and that's to do with a lot to do with measurements and dimensions and area, because the theory is that you have the same area of airflow throughout. So because this has to be flat in order for this bite zone to be flat, to be comfortable, so it can't be circular. Say you do your draft hole at 3.5 mil, for argument's sake, but this end bit here is only 1.5 mil. So you're going to end up bottlenecking. You're going to end up making a very narrow area here to draw through, and it's going to whistle, and it's going to bottle up all of that smoke, and it's going to start to burn you and stuff like that. So what they do is make a large flat hole. So the area is the same as 3.5 mil, but it's flat instead of being round. In order to achieve that, they funnel it and they fan out and flatten it with a tool like this, and you just do that by hand, and that basically gives you the same circumference, the same area I should say, over there as you have in the rest of the drill. So it should theoretically give you the same flow of smoke all the way through. Why people have saddle bit, that's a design. That's got nothing to do with the mechanics. That's aesthetics. It's to do with weight as well. You know, for some pipes, I suppose, but it'll help balance the pipe. But I suppose the natural instinct is to say that if you make a saddle bit stem, you're actually going to make it bowl heavy, because you're taking all the weight out of the stem. But people just like it. People just like the way it looks. I like a saddle bit stem. Most people that I know like a saddle bit stem compared to a tapered stem. I happen to just prefer a saddle bit stem. I think that's just a design thing. Yeah, for sure. You can get buffing wheel attachments for your drill. For sure. I mean, I did that until I got my lathe. I used an attachment for the drill for over a year. Where's mine? This one is completely knackered, but that's, you know, it's all worn down. It was about that wide in the beginning, but I used these for over a year. So you get that with a little arbor, and that just goes straight into the back of your drill. One of the things I've been doing quite a bit recently as well is having this flared shank, the junction between the shank and the bowl being flared at the top there, so it's flat here but wider at the top. It's just a design thing. It's just something that I like doing. It's something which I've seen a lot on Italian pipes. This is a green, emerald green, swirly stem. Yes, it is taped up, simply because I want to get a straight line on the rustication. I will take it off soon. Yep, I've said to Mike many times, I think Castello break all the rules, and I like that. I've actually got a Castello Bulldog on its way to me, from the States, in fact, which I won a while ago, but it's taken its time. I won it on eBay. I think it was from Great Estate Pipes. So it looked chunky enough for me to get it converted, and I probably won't do that one myself. I'll probably send it off either to Mike Billington or to Ian Walker to convert. He won £500 on the slot, so I'll be ordering a new pipe or two when it hits my bank. I like the look of that claw pipe you just showed. Yeah, well, this one has had some issues, so I'm not entirely sure that I'd be happy selling it. I had to re-drill it a couple of times, and I made this shank myself out of faux ivory, and it really turned out beautiful, but I had to re-glue it a few times because I had to re-drill it, and I'm not really happy selling it, I must be honest. I would sell it, in truth, as a seconds, but it would be on the understanding that it was as a complete seconds. And it might just not be worth messing around with. I'm pretty easygoing with dedicating pipes, Daniel, but certainly I do dedicate to genres, so I won't smoke Latakia in a Virginia pipe. So whilst I may smoke lots of different Virginia tobaccos and vapors in any given pipe, but it'll always be Virginias and vapors, possibly Virginias with Orientals, but not Latakia. Latakia pipes are completely separate. Aromatic pipes are completely separate. So aromatic Latakia Virginia. It can be any type of Virginia, but just not with Latakia. So it could be Virginia Perique, Virginia Oriental, Virginia Burleys, but just not Latakia or aromatic. Yeah, no worries, Rich. I don't smoke Lakelands, I don't like them. Maybe once in a blue moon I'll have a bit of Ennerdale, but as a general rule, I don't smoke Lakelands. The bin, exactly. Exactement. I don't know the answer to that either. I'm not familiar with those. A lot of people love the Best Brown, and I may have even tried it, but I don't recall what it is. And the rum flake is the same. I'm not familiar with it, so I can't comment. Yeah, Sammy G, I know. Well, yeah, Gareth Hogarth Sammy G. The ones which are usually sold in bulk are often Gareth Hogarth as opposed to Sammy G. The most underrated tobacco blend or pipe brand. Well, I can only say what's the most underrated blend from my experience. I can't say what it is generally because I haven't smoked every blend out there. There's thousands. So based on my limited exposure to tobacco, I think one of the most underrated tobaccos is Fora Virginia. I've said it many, many times, and whilst transferring stuff from my old car to my new car, I found a little pot of the stuff because I thought I had none left. I certainly haven't got any pouches of it. And that's been sitting in the car stewing, so it may even have gotten a little bit richer as a result of those temperatures it's been suffering recently. So I've got to try that again. It's actually now in my new car, but I've got to bring it indoors and try it out. But the truth is, all of those kind of questions are very subjective because even when we have an opinion, we change our minds all the time. We're very fickle that way. We try a new tobacco and we think, oh wow, this is the best thing since sliced bread. And that's only lasts until you find the next one. Getting there. Slowly. Slowly but surely. Oh, greed, definitely. Just greed. I'm all about greed. In my case, I've simply set two price points and I've based them on the star grading that I use. So at the moment, I've only ever made 1-stars and 2-star graded pipes. My 1-star pipes are priced roughly, it's not a fixed price, but roughly between £140 and £185. And the 2-star pipes are from £185 upwards, usually up to around £250. But I do my best always to keep even the 2-star pipes just around the 200 mark or less. So my aim is to actually keep the prices down, not to increase them. But I have to make them a certain price, otherwise it's not viable. So that's roughly how my grading works. So with exceptional pipes, it could go up to say 240, 250, sometimes even 300, but it's very rare. Maybe on a Magnum pipe, I'll take it to 300 possibly, but on average, my pipes are priced between 140 and 200 pounds on average. But there's wiggle room there. Do carvers sell for profit? Of course, they wouldn't be in it otherwise. They're not working for charity. If they were doing it as a hobby, they'd just keep the pipes themselves. Just make themselves a few pipes to smoke every so often. But if somebody's a carver full-time or even part-time like me, but churning out pipes regularly, they're going to be doing it to make money. No question about it. Why wouldn't they? Thank you, Rich. I appreciate that. It's always good to get feedback. I always tell that to my customers. I ask them to tell me how it smokes, and a good percentage of them do email me afterwards and tell me, that they enjoy smoking it, or if there's something. I had one particular pipe maker, a customer, who brought up a particular issue with a pipe, which has only happened that one time. But I offered him to we could send it back, and I could redo the pipe. But he decided to keep it. I mean, there was nothing wrong with the smokability of it. It was to do with the staining process. And I said don't mind sanding it right back to briar and restaining it, but he decided to hold on to it. So obviously, I want to stand by my workmanship. And if there's an issue, I'll deal with it. I had that with Stephen, Cobbett of the Shire. He bought one of my mortar pipes, and it basically burnt right through, which is not my fault. It's the mortar. But nevertheless, I told him to send it back to me. I made him a new pipe, sent it to him. I repaired the old pipe, and I gave him the old pipe back as well. So it's really important to me, number one, to get the feedback, but my reputation is very, very important to me. Without it, you're nowhere. So you got to be able to stand by your product. Hey Jeffrey, how you doing? Thank you, Kev. Appreciate that. And Josh. How you doing, Jeffrey? I think a lot of that decision, Daniel, of whether you go for a new pipe or an estate pipe is going to be down to finance, and also what grade of pipe you want to buy. Because it's not purely about finance, because if it was, even if you're buying an estate pipe for $50, you can buy a brand new Rossi pipe for $50, and you can break it in yourself and smoke it as you like, and only have your own pipes, only have your own tobacco in there. I've bought many estate pipes, and overall, I used to say it was 50-50 about whether they ended up being a good smoke or not, but I think now I'm on a higher percentage. If I have to be honest, I would say that it's probably around 70-30. Probably about 70% of the pipes that I've bought as estate pipes have stayed with me as good smokers. Right at the beginning, I probably was just unlucky, and I got a few Lakeland ghosted pipes and that kind of thing. But generally speaking, my biggest hurdle with estate pipes was just overcoming that concept of smoking a pipe which somebody else had smoked, which in the beginning was quite a hurdle for me. I'm not OCD or anything like that, but just the thought of putting something in my mouth which somebody's been sucking on, biting on, chewing on, spitting through, breathing through, and then putting that in my mouth. And so until I really sort of developed a full sort of cleaning process and buying them from reputable sellers and things like that, it was very hard for me to smoke estate pipes. But once I got over that, I was in there like a shot. I was buying them tad really, set in big time. And of course, if you get one which is not ghosted in a way that you don't like, then you've got a broken in pipe, and that's great. You don't have to worry about breaking it in, and it's a good deal. And you've got yourself a good pipe at a low price. I've been buying Stanwell pipes for quite a while now. When I bought my first Stanwell pipe, it was a non-filtered, like a small pickaxe pipe. Nice looking pipe. It was a freehand kind of pickaxe style. It had a typical Danish stem, ones of those with the little sort of turned, whatever you call them, the hills and valleys, whatever you call them, the little, like that. Typical Danish looking pipe, but I didn't enjoy smoking it. I don't know what it was at the time. I can't remember anymore. Might have been the draw, I don't know what it was. And I sold it on. That was my first Stanwell pipe. So as a result, I never really went for Stanwells after that. And until I started buying the pipe of the year pipes or the Christmas pipes, and those, I just sort of really enjoy those. I think they use a lot of silver on them, I like that as well. And they just seem to be made very well. I mean, the Danish ones anyway. Having said that, I recently bought the pipe of the year 2020, and I really enjoy smoking it. I've said this already, that the stem, the bite zone is maybe not as refined as the Danish ones, but other than that, it smoked very well. Is it carved, as well as the Danish ones? I can't really make a decision based on one pipe, so I've got to kind of watch a few years of the pipe of the years and see how it goes. Hey Jeff. They're really good, Andrew. It's all I can tell you is that I enjoy them. The one which I've got, which is the pot, which is unstamped. I'm sure I've mentioned it many times. That one sat on my shelf for so long, and I just didn't touch it. It was an estate. That one had it been smoked? Maybe not even. I think most of the ones that I've bought haven't been smoked. The ones that I've bought from the Danish pipe shop haven't been smoked, but they were estate pipes. The ones that I've bought recently, I've got one sitting in my drawer which I haven't smoked yet. That one is an estate pipe, But that pot, the one which is unstabbed, for some reason I just didn't like it in the beginning. I bought it, but I just didn't. I just wasn't a fan. But now I'm a convert. I absolutely love that pipe. The shape is great, and it smokes very, very well. I did sell that one. I had a funny story with that one actually. Um, it was a bit awkward for a while, but it's all's well that ends well. I did sell that pipe, and I sold that pipe to one along with another 8 or 10 pipes to a collector in the US, and he spent a pretty sizable amount of money on those pipes, all in all. I mean, he also bought my 60th anniversary Northern Briars pipes, which I sold, because he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. Essentially, I wouldn't have sold them otherwise. And he bought a couple of my pipes as well, maybe 3 or 4 of my pipes, or 2 or 3 of my pipes, and a bunch of other pipes. He bought my the one which I've held on to for a long time, my Astley Dublin, the sandblasted Dublin. He bought that one as well. And basically, the bottom line is, I sent him the package, and I realized afterwards that I hadn't sent him that 2002 pipe of the year, which he had bought and paid for. It was sitting under some stuff on my desk, and without realizing it, I'd forgotten to pack it. So I thought to myself, maybe that's fate. And I just sent him his money back for that pipe, and I said, if you don't mind, I'd like to just hold on to it. And it was good money, you know, but he was insistent. He said, no, a deal's a deal. I said, fine, no problem, a deal's a deal. So I've agreed to send it back to him, and he sent me the money back. Got to stick to my word. That, I suppose, will be one of the pipes that you kind of regret passing on sometimes. I'm not so sentimental about my pipes, I must be honest, but sometimes. Yeah, he did really want it. He was quite robust about it, so I wasn't going to argue. No, he's a decent guy. I mean, he wasn't nasty or anything like that. He's a gentleman. You know, he's a gentleman to deal with, and we're all good. You know, we've made up. We've kissed and made up, as they say. But if I could have, I would have held on to it. I mean, there's many pipes that I've made that I've really, really desperately wanted to hold on to. But what's the point? You know, if you're making pipes to sell, customer wants it, you just got to sell it. I was talking about Ebershorn blocks before having beautiful grain. I don't remember which pipe number it was. Probably about, I don't know, maybe 30 pipes back, 40 pipes back, I don't know. And this guy also bought about 8 pipes from me, a different guy from America. And he bought the pipes that he bought from me were all my pipes as well, as opposed to. It all started off because he liked my LCS Rhodesian, the first Rhodesian pipe that I made, and that's how it kicked off. And then he must have just discovered my IG page or something like that. But anyway, he went through a flurry of buying my pipes, and I think he ended up buying 8 pipes, which was very cool. And one of the pipes that I sent him was also a pipe which I would have very much liked to have held on to. It was an Ebershorn block pipe, but it had just amazing a variety of grain all the way around the pipe. It was a mixture of flame, bird's eye, no, it wasn't flame, it was horizontal and bird's eye. Yes, that does happen, Daniel. Sometimes you have to do something in order to make it happen that way. So, for instance, my Soren Refberg bent apple, that one I couldn't get a decent smoke out of it. I moved it over to being a Latakia pipe, and it works fine. Some pipes, you know, the briar just either takes a long time to break, or it can be a piece of briar that has a bad flavor. There's nothing you can do about it, and sometimes you just got to find the right tobacco that works in tandem with that flavor, or it masks it. Hey Tony. Hey up. Yeah, that's what somebody else said, but thankfully it's not happened so far. As I said before, I've shaped this handle to really have a good solid grip in the palm of my hand, so please God, that'll stay that way. Have I had a pipe brand or carver you will never buy from? Ooh, Daniel, you're firing him today. You're on full cylinders here today. Uh, yes, there is one. I don't remember his name, and I wouldn't say his name either. But I'll tell you why. I think I have mentioned it before. I wouldn't mention his name though. There was a guy on IG. I'll never buy from LCS. You're quite right, Josh. Good one. Your mind is sharp tonight, as ever. But there was one guy. He put up a pipe on IG. I liked the look of it. I asked him how much it was, and I offered him slightly less. And he was very, very offended. And he was effing and blinding back. He was very aggressive. Really very, very aggressive. And I said, hey, okay, fine. Just state your price. Say no. If you're not happy with my offer, just say no and we'll part ways as friends. But he took such bad offense by it and he was so verbally abusive. So I would never buy from him. Never, ever. As far as I'm concerned at the moment. Yeah, no worries, up. We like down and dirty. I don't know if he was a method. He's certainly a well-known pipe maker. I don't see that much of him these days, and I don't know if that's to do with his attitude or, I have no idea if he's had run-ins with other people or not. I don't really care, to be honest. Put it this way, it was a lesson to me how not to behave to customers. So I suppose I should be looking on the positive side and be grateful to him for that lesson. There you go. Talk about silver linings to every cloud. This is a rusticating tool which I made myself from a normal slot bit, a screwdriver bit, and I just used the Dremel to cut teeth into it to get into the little difficult spots to get, because this, it doesn't reach. I can do it like that, but there's a gap there, as you can see. Oh, you mean pipe brand? No, I don't think so. A pipe brand that I wouldn't buy from. I can't think of one, I must be honest. I mean, even Peterson, which I've yet to see or have or enjoy a Peterson long term. I mean, I've got, the one that I used in the competition, the slow smoke competition, which actually served me very well, but it's also drilled quite badly. But for the most part, the Petersons that I've had have all gurgled or had some other issues or been very badly drilled. So I've not had good experience, but Petersons are such a storied brand, especially in America. They've got a huge fan base in America, the whole Irish connection. But I wouldn't say that I wouldn't ever buy a Peterson. I mean, I just don't see myself buying one at the moment, but I wouldn't say that I would never buy one. And that's probably the only brand that, I mean, even Savinelli, would I buy a new Savinelli now? I don't know if I would. Possibly, I do like the Autograph range. I've never had the Punta Oro yet, the gold spot. And those are supposed to be very good Briar. But I do like the autographs. But even the autographs, I find the carving on them sometimes, the shaping, to be, especially the rims. I find the rims to be very unequal, my eye is quite symmetrical, and I find them to be asymmetrical, even when they're not supposed to be. It's interesting because the autographs were supposed to have always been made by individual carvers at Savinelli. I don't know if that's the case anymore, but certainly originally when the autograph range was released, I think it was just one carver who made those pipes for a long time, for many years. But I don't think that's the case anymore. I've got one autograph pipe, and that smokes very, very well. I bought that as an estate pipe, also on eBay, and it serves me very, very well. It's got a stunning ring grain, but the rim is just mundane to me. I mean, if I had the balls, I would sand that smooth and see if I could make a nice feature out of the rim. I mean, the truth is, no reason why I shouldn't, because if it doesn't work out, I can just restain it black. But I've never even thought about it. You know, some pipes, especially autographs or any high grade pipe, you don't really want to mess with it. You want it to be original. You want to be faithful to the original intention of whoever made it. You had an eBay seller. Hey, Kane Rod, how you doing? You had an eBay seller get excited at me because I wanted to make an offer on a couple of Falcon pipes. Yet he tried to tell me that I hadn't paid him for what I already bought. Son, now that you're covered, can you pick out flaws in other carvers' pipes or mistakes in other carvers' pipes? You can pick out flaws in anything in this world. People will pick out flaws in my pipes too. You know, it's a natural product, and we're working with our hands, so there's always going to be flaws. Never perfect, never perfect. Has making pipes lessened my enjoyment of pipes in any way? I once met a typewriter who said he came to hate the machines after 40 years of dismantling down to the springs. It's an interesting question. That's not happened as yet. I must be honest with you, when I started doing photography, but must be almost 20 years ago, it was like a day out at the fun fair each time I went to do a wedding or a bar mitzvah or an engagement, because I just enjoyed photography. But of course, after a while, when you have to do it, and you have to do it when you perhaps one day when you can't be bothered for it, and you have to do it, and then you've got to sit at the computer processing all the pictures afterwards, it becomes a chore. But there's a certain element of enjoyment, of freedom, when you, as a photographer, you know, it's not like you're sitting in an office or you're sitting laboring at some kind of thing. It is a labor, of course it is. And I'm not in any way diminishing other types of ways of making a living, but there is a certain freedom, and there's also an artistic freedom when it comes to making photos. So I still enjoy it, but I don't enjoy it as much, that's for sure. And I don't enjoy certain aspects of it, like sitting at the computer processing pictures. But I do enjoy taking the photos, especially when I'm working with people who are either photogenic or they're really into it and they're not problematic. Sometimes you can get a wedding where somebody's just there to give you a hard time, and that makes it does put a bit of a downer on the day. But with pipes, so far, there isn't such a connection between making pipes and smoking pipes, I have to be honest. Whether I'm in the mood for a cigar or a pipe hasn't changed by the fact that I make pipes. Sometimes I'll just be in the mood for either. I smoke pipes more than cigars. There was a time when it was the other way around, but for sure, I can go weeks without smoking a cigar nowadays, and in the past it was the other way around. I could go months without smoking a pipe. So I'm back into my routine, and I have been since I discovered filtered pipes. So it's nearly for about a year and a half now. You know, I start my day with a pipe and with a coffee in the car, and that kind of, I don't have as many pipes as you might think, because I do half bowls, as you know, and I'll start one in the morning and I'll usually finish that on my drive back, and then oftentimes I won't have another pipe until later on in the day, another half a bowl. So I would say that in all, I probably have 1 to 2 bowls a day, if that. No worries, Rich. Thanks very much for joining. Preacher Man Piper, how you doing? Thanks for joining. Hey, Paul, you back? Yeah, Kegel, Jeff, absolutely. I should, if I would be in my office, I'd be able to show you the pipe that I mean. Cane Rod, absolutely, Mike. Thank you for joining. Appreciate it. I think there's a lot I could learn from you watching your videos, especially stem making. That's still an area which I haven't excelled in. The Sav staining, Andrew. For me, it hasn't been about the staining. I've had quite a number of Savinellis over the years, and the ones that I've had, only some have really treated me well, and some of them I just didn't get good smokes out of them. The flavor just wasn't there for me. Whereas, and it could well be because I hadn't given them enough chance to break in. Of course, that's a possibility. I've got a Maron glass sitting in the drawer in my drawer upstairs. A beautiful pipe. There is something also about their rustication. Maybe it's what you're saying. Maybe you're saying the same thing. Um, there's a certain, I wouldn't say unfinished feel to it, but it's just something which all of their pipes have got that same feel. I don't know what it is, but they all have that feel of something is not quite finished, and it gives it a feel to me of being not quite right, and maybe that mentally creates a mental block for me, and they just don't work for me. I can't quite describe it. Daniel, things change over generations. Of course they do. You have pipes. I mean, if you named one brand such as Dunhill, they've gone through a lot of evolutions in their history. From being completely handmade to having the stummels made in France and finished here in the UK. And now I think they make them here. I'm not sure what they do nowadays. They're supposedly going back to their roots. I don't know. Um, I'm not a huge Dunhill fan, I must be honest. Nothing wrong with them. I have one still, but I very rarely smoke it. Absolutely. I mean, that's how it started. It started from my passion for the hobby. It was an extension of my pipe smoking that got me into making pipes. It was just messing around with a. It started with messing around with one of these, a kit block, which I made, maybe two or three of them, which I made for myself. And I think it was the fourth or the fifth one which came out so well, and somebody said they'd buy it, and it went from there. But I'm very passionate about anything to do with pipes. My family, they've got used to it. Whenever we go anywhere, I'm always on the hunt for a pipe shop or something like that. And sadly, these days, I'm really successful in that. Um, Rarely, not really. And the amount of reading material that I go through is just ridiculous. As I say, I've just now got the Ephemeris book number one, and hopefully getting book number two soon. And I've started making my way through book number one. It's really great to see, some names. I haven't yet seen any names that I recognize from the more recent literature that I've been reading. So I'm still early on. I'm still when it first started in 1967 or something like that, before I was born. So I don't recognize any of the names yet. I think book two I'd probably recognize more people. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. A billiard versus a bulldog. It really depends who's making it in terms of how it will smoke. And it's the same as with a Dublin, for instance. As long as if they're making a tapered pipe, as long as the bit is tapered, you shouldn't really see any major difference in the smoking. But if somebody uses a U-shaped bit in a bulldog and a Dublin, where the walls of the pipe come in like that, they taper like that. If there isn't enough material left between the outside edge of the bowl and the inside edge of the bowl, then it's obviously going to smoke very hot and run the risk of burnout. But other than that, I don't think they should smoke very differently, whereas it's more going to be dependent on the shape of the chamber. Some people enjoy a tapered bit, a V-shaped chamber, and some people prefer a U-shaped chamber. There's pros and cons, and there's good reason on both sides. A lot of the Boswell pipes that I've had, if not all, but certainly a lot of them have been V-shaped, but not just V-shaped, but really, really tapered to a point, and they smoke excellent. They really, my Boswell, the two Boswells that I've got is the freehand Dublin, and I've also got the bent apple, one of my first, I think it was my first Boswell pipe. Both fantastic smokers. So there's a lot to be said about tapered chambers, because there's an argument that it focuses the flavors in. At the same time, some people might argue that it also focuses the tar and the carbon and everything all into a point. So there's arguments on both sides. Thank you, Erp, I appreciate that. The book is, but it's not. It's the book is the Ephemeris. I can't remember the full title. So I'm sure somebody here will be able to say the Ephemeris Pipe Smokers Ephemeris, something like that. But basically, a guy called Tom Dunn, he created a little leaflet, if you like, in the beginning, which he started off and he sent it out to people who were interested. And reading the first edition, it's literally a one-side sheet, and he's got maybe 6 people that he's sending it to. By the time I've gotten into I haven't read it all, I've just flicked through it. Halfway through the first book, it's 36 pages long, 40 pages long, one of the issues. I think he did it roughly quarterly, I'm not sure. It became very, very, and people basically sent in information. It wasn't him. All he did was collate the entries that people sent in. So people sent in poems, people sent in literature, people sent in just queries about pipe smoking or tobaccos or where they could get this or that. And it ended up being this amazing thing which people miss, because when he died, that was it, it went to pop. So at some point he stopped doing it, but he created these books collating all of those pamphlets, if you like. And there's 2 books. And the first book covers, I'm not sure how many years, maybe 10 years or something like that. And the second book, probably a similar amount. I don't know, Daniel, you might be right. In my experience, it's really the heat of the pipe is really to do with the thickness of the walls. Maybe Mike Cainrod could comment more on this. But as long as you've got consistent thickness of the wall, when you've got a tapered pipe, as long as it's, if you've got a tapered hole, then your thickness is going to be consistent. It shouldn't really be an issue. But certainly, Dublin pipes, tapered pipes, if they thin out towards the bottom, then they're going to smoke hotter. In terms of smooth versus rusticated, certainly smooth pipes, until your cake is built up, certainly the smooth pipe is going to be hotter to hold, without a doubt. When you've got a rusticated pipe or a carved pipe or a sandblasted pipe, all those ridges are creating triple the amount of surface. I've talked about this in the past, but I'm happy to repeat it and make the same diagram as I made last time. So if that's a smooth pipe surface and that's a rusticated, so that's your surface area there. So the heat all dissipates throughout the surface of the pipe. A rusticated pipe, because it's like that, it's so you've got the heat dissipating you've got double, at least double, the amount of surface area that the heat can dissipate from. So the heat dissipates faster, ergo the pipe feels cooler. If that makes any sense. Yes, you are taking away briar. That's the briar I've taken away from this pipe so far. Yes, and here's the science bit. Because you're worth it. Okay, rustication complete. So there's our rusticated pipe. Let us remove the tape. Didn't you find that advert so degrading to women? As if they haven't got enough to worry about. So there we have it. So we have a stacked billiard with a flared shank bowl junction. Domed smooth rim. And there we go. You reckon I should leave this one natural? Not necessarily, Daniel. If you're careful with how you smoke the pipe, and you build up a little bit of a cake inside, or if you have a bowl coating, there's no reason for you to burn it out. If you chug it like a train, then yes, there is that risk. I can say that I've never burnt out a pipe in my life. I was brought up in the age of YouTube, so we didn't smoke out pipes in the same way as the old codgers would. So very careful with our pipes overall. Even though I mistreat them, it's still a downside more respectful to my pipes than the old codgers used to be. Truth be told, I think natural works well with the green. So maybe I'll leave it natural. I am a bit of a perfectionist, and it's for that reason that I do rework pipes on many occasions. If you go back through my channel, you'll see lots of videos of revisited pipes, because I'll do a pipe, especially in the early days. It was more about, making pipes with not enough experience. So sometimes I'll have been happy with the shape and realize afterwards that the shape isn't quite right. So I'll go back to it, or the staining wasn't quite right. As you develop your skills, and I don't say this with any conceited attitude, I say this in a practical way. As you develop your skill, you tend to get it right first time more often. But there's still times when I don't get it right first time, at least in my eyes. To some people, I may never get it right, but in my eyes, at least, I've got to be happy with it. So there are times when I still don't get it right, and I'll go back to a pipe. Or I got it right, but I could do better. Maybe make a slightly different shape. And I have done that on occasion. But for the most part, I'm more than happy to go back to a pipe. I don't like the idea of going back to a pipe because I'm always scared of the risk of ruining it, but that will not stop me perfecting the pipe. Especially if, give you a good example, before I thought I had finished shaping it and I went back to the sander a few times, because when I was looking at the pipe, I was trying to ensure a perfect dome on the underside. Yeah, that's very important on a billiard pipe. And it looked to me a little bit more weighty on one side than the other, so I kept going back to get it right. And the same was with this. Getting these curves here, the cheeks, getting those equal can sometimes be a very testing exercise, and I had to keep going back to it to make sure that they were as equal as my eye could tell. So yeah, definitely, I've got no problem going back to a pipe. It can sit, yeah. Well, with the rustication done, insert you know, in the pits of the rustication, in the valleys of the rustication, it won't be as thick as obviously the outer parts, but there's plenty thickness on this, yes. And you'll often see on rusticated pipes when they're new that some of the dye comes through on the inside of the bowl if the walls are too thin to start with, because the briar absorbs that stain very quickly. And if your walls are too thin and then you rusticate, making it even thinner in spots, that will go straight through and you'll see it. So oftentimes the place to see that is in the shank. But this one won't have any issues with that. It's a nice thick shank. And nicely drilled. And plenty of meat under the drill there as well. Which is very important to me. That's one thing which I try to do. I can't say I'll do it with every pipe, depending on the shape. But if you see here, there's a very, very slight bulbous effect there, and that's to ensure that there's plenty of briar beneath the bottom of the chamber. But at the same time, I don't want it to appear as an extension. So it's very gradual, and having that flare at the top helps, because you can have a bit of a flare on the underside as well, and it looks okay, it looks symmetrical, and it's pleasing to the eye without looking like you've got this bulge at the bottom. So this one will smoke like a freight train without any problems. Daniel, do I think a full bent pipe will be drilled off center? It really depends on who's drilling it, bottom line. But it is very challenging, I'll give you that. And are they good to smoke, bent pipes? Again, it really depends on who's making it, and it really depends on how things line up. If it's drilled correctly, I personally prefer a bent pipe because of the balance, the way it hangs, and the way the close center of gravity to your face that it has because it's bent. But it won't necessarily smoke better. It's a matter of what you prefer. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that. So this bit here at the bottom will get sanded smooth for the stamping, so you'll get to see a little bit of that cross grain there, which is nice. And that's about it. So there'll be a little bit of grain on the edge here, and obviously the smooth rim, and I may well leave that just as it is, leave it smooth, that sort of top section there. But all of that I think I'm going to sand by hand. So there we go. And what I would usually do as well is I'll just run it by this wire brush as well, just to flatten, smooth out the rustication just a little bit, because what I find that although I prefer this kind of sharp feel, but what that tends to do is to grab dirt, whether it's from your hands or from whatever it might be. So just giving it a once over with a wire brush just smooths off the sharp edges, and it just makes it feel a little bit more finished. And maybe I will leave it natural. What do you reckon? Just cheers, Mike. Thank you very much. I might just do a shellac on top of that and leave it like that without staining it. Yeah, maybe. What are we saying, people? Natural or stain? I could stain it like a brown or a black. A golden hue. For that I would need to use button polish. Yeah, maybe we could do button polish on this one. That's this stuff here. That's a nice idea. You see a bit of the grain there. Hey Robert, long time no see. How are you? How's the Magnum? Robert is the owner of my first ever Magnum. I hope it's serving you well. Paul says I should stain it green. The weight of the pipe is just purely, some briar is denser than others, some blocks are heavier than others. So you can have two blocks exactly the same size, but one will be heavier than the other, just because of the density of the wood. But the weight is obviously determined by how much you take off the block. In terms of bowl heavy, it just simply means that the weight of the bowl is heavier than the combined weight of the shank and the stem. So when you've got it in your mouth and you're clenching, it feels like it's pulling down because the weight is heavier. When it's well balanced, the weight of the bowl is reasonably equal to the weight of the shank and the stem. So it should feel balanced. And what would be even better, if the shank and the stem weighed more than the bowl, then you're in a good spot. You're in a really good spot then. This one feels very, very light, I have to say. It's probably around 50 grams, 55 grams, something like that, even though it's quite chunky. But it feels like quite a light block of briar. You're staying in a non-smoking hotel? Oh no. Have you got a balcony that you can go out on? So we're on 240 grit now. Oh dear. Yeah, mortar, you treat it pretty much the same way. It's just takes a bit longer. And when you drill it, you have to be a little bit careful because it can explode if you're not careful. It can shatter. Just the makeup of mortar, the way it's very sinuous. I find it quite stringy and sinuous, and splintery. A long stem will make it more noticeable. Absolutely, XJ, you're absolutely right. The further away it is from your face, the more the bowl is going to pull on your jaw. I have particularly bad joints in my jaw. They don't take much abuse at all, and they get sore. So that's why I tend to prefer bent pipes. When I first started, the first pipes, I spent a lot of money on bent pipes, then went off them and went over to straight pipes, and now I'm kind of moving back over to bent pipes. Okay, we're going up to 320. So now that we're on 320, I'm going to sand all the smooth areas of the pipe. Because this area here by the stem, I've already done up to 400 on the wheel. But on all the pipes that I do, I always go back to 320 by hand. The church warden, if it's bent, you're going to be hand holding it anyway, because it's going to be unwieldy with a long stem. So it's not such a big issue. with a church warden because you'd handhold it anyway. Uh-oh. Don't listen to Paul. He's a naughty boy. Lul indeed. No worries, Tony. That's what it's all about. It's enjoying the hobby, sharing the hobby. That's exactly what it's all about. Oh, wow. Well, you might be there for a while, Robert. I don't use a power sander at this stage because it's harder to end up with a nice smooth finish when I'm using the sanding wheel. So especially when you're doing a curved sweep with the sander, you're much more controlled doing it by hand, as opposed to when you're doing that. You have still got control, but I just prefer to do it by hand. Alright, I'm just going to move you to the lathe. So you can't even feel the joint. Perfect joint. Nice and smooth. Nice and smooth. Yes, you did, Samuel. Well done. Well spotted. Won't be the first time. I'm sure it won't be the last. All right, so the next stage is 600. Hey Eric, how you doing? Yeah, I've got a bit of a problem myself. My extractor is giving me a bit of trouble at the moment. It's actually a Mazda 6. So far, so good. Hopefully, it'll stay that way. It's my first Mazda. I've not had a Mazda before. And it actually drives very, very nicely. And one thing which I've discovered since acquiring it is that on one of the sort of stowage spaces in the boot underneath, you know, there's a felt bit of carpet on the boot and there's a couple of bit of stowage buckets on the sides. One of them has got water in it, so I've got to find out what's causing that. But otherwise, so far so good. Okay, so I've now got to decide what I'm doing with this now. If I'm leaving it natural or staining it. I don't know. I also need to decide if I'm doing the wire brush or not. I haven't decided on that one either. What do we think? Natural or stain? I could do like a medium brown stain so it'll pick up the grain on the smooth areas nicely over here and over here. Sleep on it, yeah, I could do that. Where's my pie? Excuse me. So somebody asked before about the filters, how many smokes? That's after one smoke. So I'm not going to reuse that. Hey, Boca the pointing. 2:30. Stain it, says Jeff. Andrew says natural. Boris, how are you? Haven't seen you in a while. Boris says natural. Tony says shoddy. Remember this pipe? That's the one with a split down the middle. Got to do something with that. A light stain. As I say, I could do a button polish, which is like it gives it like a golden kind of hue. Just trying to see if I've got a pipe with that on it. That's what my thoughts are as well, Eric. I'm not into green, I must be honest, Paul. And I think with green, I'm also going to exclude a whole raft of people as potential buyers. And it will include some as well, people who like the green ones, but I could stain them different colours, yeah. This isn't quite a button polish, but it's not a million miles away. Plus a little streak of yellow stain there for some reason. Don't know what's been going on with this pipe. Oh, it's filthy. Truth be told, I can do the button polish. If I don't like it, I can go on the wire brush and then restain it. This nub covers up a hole, is what it does. Pipe I made a while back, one of the pipes I had to repair. I drilled it too shallow over here, too thin, and I just emerged very slightly at the bottom there, so I had to Just carved this little bit of briar, glued it on, and then filled the hole inside as well. Smokes great. It's a shot pipe, and you can see it's a shot pipe. How I mistreat it, but it smokes fine. It's got obviously huge, thick walls. No secret feature. Jeez, this stuff is sticky. Haven't we all, Eric? Mike says leave it natural. Well, I love you all, but Mike rules. But it came off, Mike. All right. We'll start off listening to Mike. If it doesn't look good, we'll disobey and be naughty. So I'm just going to go for a shellac. And let's see how that goes. Are you saying I should leave it completely natural with nothing on it? Or with just a neutral shellac? Nothing at all. You mean I can go to bed? Well, I'm going to have to wax that. I'm going to have to carnauba wax the smooth bits. That's faux show. Got this sound thing. Lid goes back on, people. Okay. Good night, everybody. I can go to bed. Right, I've got to go back on the wheel. All right. I hear you. All right, so I've got to move you back to the lathe for the finishing touches. Ooh, spotted me again. The button polish and the shellac is very similar, except that the button polish has a very slight stain to it, like a slight golden hue. You may think that, Eric. I couldn't possibly say. Night, Boris. Cheers. I just need to rebuff the stem because I sanded it with a 600. That grip that I had before was because I didn't want the dust getting into all the crevices, but instead I've just put tape over it. So I'm not sure what you mean by aggressive, but yeah. Maybe. That's just me. All right, well there it is, the finished product. Let me turn this light off. Cheers, Tim. I'm actually going to put this in a bag because they get dirty quite quickly. This is dusty on the outside, but not on the inside, hopefully. I'll take it upstairs. And we'll get a video done of it soon enough, and we'll see if it sells as it is. What do we think of the flared junction? Well, my pipe bags are much more advanced now. I've got some. These are my pipe bags now. Look at that fancy dandy bag. Straight from China, no doubt. So I bought a stack of them, of these little brown bags. Does the job for now. Trying to remember what this tobacco is. Oh, it's Erinmore, I think. Let's load up a pipe and find out. You know what, I'll put some in my 131 pipe. So I'm going to stay on for a little bit longer and join you for a bit of a smoke, and then call it a night. Did I just put a filter in there or not? Yes, I did. The flare is very much something which I've borrowed from Castello, from shapes like the Shape 55, although the Shape 55, the flare is in the underside, but from various of their pipe shapes. I mean, this one's also got a non-uniform junction there, and I tend to like it. I think it just gives it a bit of heft. I just like it. I think it adds to the robustness, at least from the way it looks in the pipe, and it's kind of the look that I go for, something which looks well made. Exactly, XJ, my point exactly. An hourglass shank, I'm sure some people have done it. You do see these very big bulbous shanks on some wild shaped pipes, but that's very much an aesthetic thing. caught a bit of sun and it's made my arms itch. I'm scratching them to no end. A red raw. Don Afaldo, never heard of that. Right, I think we can load up. Right, let's talk about Eric while he's away. So, Mike, what's next on your channel? Yes, you, Mike. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you for joining. And I look forward to that day. You made any plans for a pipe of the year, Mike, or you're still not ready for that? Marzio? Oh, right. Radice. Any ideas on a shape yet? Or any front runners on the shape? You could get one of those jumbo-sized pipes and smoke it. You've got them, Stosh. I'm sure you guys have seen those. Which film maybe do you see those kind of guys dressed up as in leather with the old German helmets with big moustache with the huge Boswell jumbo pipes? Those are hilarious. Freaky but hilarious. Slightly bent classic prints or straight Italian pipe. So I guess you go with whatever you like, because you did that with the 55. You were collecting 55s at the time, and now you're doing your princes. That makes sense. Worst comes to worst, you'll have them for yourself if you don't sell them. But I've had quite a few people comment on my one. I've been smoking it quite a bit lately and doing pictures and stuff. whether it be on Instagram or Facebook. People really regretting that they didn't jump on them when you did it last time. So I think you'll have a good clientele waiting. As long as you keep me a 9mm, I'll be happy. Don't see many princes from them. A pewter tamper, nice. Is that made by them as well? All right, I must confess I didn't see that giveaway. Oh, very nice. I've been in touch with a stamping company in the States. And it's a bit like pulling stone. Very slow, the progress, till I get an answer from them every time. I was looking at, John Keller, JWK. He's got a lovely stamp, and he doesn't seem to have any problem applying the stamp. And Professor Walker, he doesn't seem to have any problem applying his stamp. So I went to the same company, but they're obviously very, very busy. It takes a long time to get a response from them. And they're not cheap. For a basic stamp, it was like $140 for a stamp. And bearing in mind that I already paid for 2 stamps, which I'm not happy with here in the UK. It's a bit of a bullet to bite. Yeah, I've looked into laser engraving as well. I came very close to buying a laser engraver, but in the end decided against it. There is certainly an advantage that you could, just have any number of stampings. It's all custom. You do it yourself on the computer, so there's no limit to what you can do. But I think it gets a bit messy as well if you have too many options. If it's that easy, you end up muddling things a little bit. A traditional stamp is still, I think, has value. It's more commensurate with the subject matter, I think. I might be wrong, but I think a traditional stamp is what fits a traditional pipe, a briar pipe. But you do have some high graders using engravers. I think Eltang uses engraver now, it looks like it anyway. They don't have the same look. And I might still do one in the end. I'm just saying that I would prefer to do a hand stamp if I can. I think it's more fitting to a pipe. But that's not to say that I can't be progressive, so I wouldn't rule it out. So I think at the moment what I'm looking at, Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I'm not getting it, Andrew, is because first of all, they're all Chinese, and and the calibration is going to be a nightmare on those things, and especially when you're dealing with curved areas, So the laser's got to travel a bit longer to do something which is further down. You could end up stretching a letter and stuff like that. Obviously, it's doable because people are using it, so it's just a matter of getting over it and doing it. But it's another faff as well. It's another hassle each time on a pipe to do the stamping. Whereas a stamp, it's consistent, it's the same every time, assuming you can get it to do its work. Okay, Andrew, by all means. Yeah, Jim Boswell, I think he uses a Dremel. His pipes are just hand signed, and he can do that nowadays because he's a famous pipe maker. He's got no issue. He's got a very loyal clientele. But I find nowadays, if you want to get anywhere, it's got to look decent. Hydraulic press, okay. It doesn't surprise me that they use hydraulic because doing it by hand is really hard. Ian Walker told me, I mean, you look at some of Ian's pipes, his pipes, some of them can have half a dozen different stamps on them, all done by hand. I don't know how he does it. He must have very strong biceps. Yeah, but you see, companies like that, they can invest a few £1,000s into a machine. I can't. Their output of thousands of pipes a year, so they can do that. Anything's possible, Tony. Although to do that, probably engraving is the way to go because you can do any kind of font that you want. Maybe so, Mike. 4.94 thousand followers, $10 a piece. No, thank you. That's not my style. If I can't afford it, I don't get it. Yeah, I've done the whole drill press thing as well. Tried that, it didn't work either. It's probably because possibly the surface of the pipe that I've tried them on weren't completely flat, so I couldn't get a decent, universal, consistent, stamping. Yeah, that sounds like a possibility, but I'm not a machine type person. I've got no experience in working with machines, in taking them apart and putting them back together. I'm handy around the house, taking stuff apart, putting it back together, but machines and custom making machines and making stuff myself to, like a lot of people, make their own workshop tools. That kind of stuff I haven't got experience with yet. I agree, Boca. I agree. I'm hoping the people I'm dealing with now, although they're a bit tardy, I hope the stamp will be worth the wait. Well, 4.94. I guess I'm going to have to start thinking about a 5,000 giveaway. I guess I'll have to do a pipe, won't I? Oh. I was thinking maybe to do some kind of a bit like the pipe you got, Mike, with that 50 on it from Radice, but to do something with 5K on it. That would be quite unique. Do you smoke that pipe at all, or do you just keep it for show? That's got to have some value. Do you smoke that pipe that you got from Radice, the 50-year pipe? Or was it Castello? I forget. I thought it was Radice, though. All right. It didn't look that large in the video. It doesn't look so big. I guess it's an occasional pipe, isn't it? It's a special pipe. It's not one that you'd have as your go-to smoker. Hey, Steph and Skip. I assume it's Steph. Yeah, I've seen it in your display cabinet there. What's new, Steph? Did I hear right that you're moving, Steph, or you have moved, or going to move? Yeah, tired, absolutely. Well, it's gone 3 a.m. here. Gustavo, welcome. Thank you for joining. El Paso, so you must be right up Mill Street. What do you say to the beard? Look at it, it's gone white. Getting to look like George Bruno. Mm. Yeah, but you've had the same beard issue for a lot longer than me, Mike. Sean Connery. Interesting you should say that. Carter Hall Estate. Do explain. As in Carter Hall tobacco? Is that up for sale or something? Or is it just the building, the estate as in the building? Don't they have a picture of some building on their tins or something? How many properties are we talking about? Yeah, right. There's lots of choice, but it's just Carter Hall. You can choose whatever you like as long as it's Carter Hall, right? I've never actually tried the stuff. Servants' quarters, don't you know? Stables. Ooh, that sounds painful. Prince Albert, that is. Maxwell House, or Nescafe, whichever is your pleasure. Quantity. No, that wasn't very good. Too much pipe in the mouth. In a different London dialect. What, you mean in a Cockney accent? Like, as if I come from the Bow Bells, which I do actually. Come to think of it, my dad, right? My dad, you know my dad, he was born in the East End, right? He really was. I've told this before. He was down in the tube down the wall. You know, down the wall, back in the wall. He was down in the tube stations during the Blitz and that. You know, the Blitz and that. He was down in the tube stations, and Prince King George, he come down there, and he come visit them and said hello, 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 and they've even got a picture of it, innit? My dad was 2 years old at the time. He was down in the tube with his mum. I don't know where his dad was, but the picture's got his mum in it, and they're all crouched in this tube station. And King George come down and visit, yeah. Apples and pears. He come down the apples and pears, innit? Stairs. Mm. You better have Adam and Eve it there. You better Adam and Eve it. Suffolk? Oh, Lord. Down in Suffolk, they talk like the country bumpkins down there. Oh, aye. Yeah, I'm a big faker. Talk like an Aussie? Nah. You got to drink Foster's Lager to speak like an Aussie. Yamba nectar, innit? Go posh, what? Once you go posh, you can't go tosh. Well, you must be posh too, because you spelt two with 2 zeros. Very posh, that is. Jamaican? No, I can't do Jamaican. Rice and peas. Nah, Aussies probably drink double X or triple X. Aye. Foster's Lager. No, I can't do a good Aussie accent either. I agree with you. Irish. Sometimes it works, you know. Sometimes it doesn't work at all, at all. Sometimes it comes out okay. Sometimes it doesn't come out at all. Castle Line 4X, not 3X, 4X, that's the one. Right, Boca. I feel like a bit of a performing monkey tonight. Talking about bananas. Yeah. Chinese. No, that would be offensive if I did that for some reason. I don't know why. Good night, Mike. Well, I think I'm coming towards the end of this bowl. Where is it? What shift are you on there, Kev? I mean, I know it's the graveyard shift, but what is it you're doing, if I may ask, if you want to share? Good night, Andrew. Good morning. It looks that way in the videos, but the roads, most of them are wide enough. Well, I'm itching and scratching myself to death here, so I think I'm going to call it a night as well. Definitely got a bit sunburnt, and I'm itching everywhere. Security. Well, enjoy your shift. I don't envy your job, but I suppose being able to get online makes life a lot easier. Don't forget to do your rounds. All right, everybody. I'm going to say good night, good morning. It is now 3:20. I need to get some shut eye. I'm sure the wife's got plans for tomorrow. So thank you, Tony. Thank you, Up65. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Kev. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Tony513. Mike Blues is gone. Thank you, XJ. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Boca, who's gone. Excuse me. And Art. Stefan Skip. And everybody else. Thank you for joining. Hope you've had a good time. I've certainly enjoyed it. Thank you, Joe. Why didn't you say hello a bit earlier, Joe? Welcome anyway. Hopefully next time take part in the conversation, though you don't have to if you don't want to. Of course, wouldn't want to force anybody to do anything they don't want to do, but do take part. Good night, everybody. Thanks a lot. Catch you on the next one. Just got here. Okay. Well, next time, midnight UK time. So that was 3 hours and 20 minutes ago. Next Saturday night. We're on usually every Saturday night. All things being equal. Cheers, everybody. Catch you on the next one.